Hey, it's Leanne here with Paper Heart Scissors, and I wanted to do a little no-line watercoloring. I had been wanting to try out the Arteza Watercolor Real Brush pens for a while because the nib or the brush on it looked very different, and they're really inexpensive, and the colors are very different than the zig markers, so an easy investment. And then I also got these a set of water pen brushes, which is really nice. They have a small, a medium, and a large of both a regular brush size and a flat wash brush. And they have that little dripper there, which releases just the right amount of water. I really liked it because I'm a real dork with the other ones. Sometimes I don't quite know how to squeeze or how much to squeeze out. And if you press that once, really just the right amount comes out. I also found that the brush sizes were really nice. Um, and when you look at the Arteza brushes, you'll also see that they have a really fine little tip, and they also go to a very broad stroke. So in making this card, I cut two pieces of watercolor, and the one on the bottom is a cold press Winsor Newton, and the one on the top that I'm going to stamp those Hero Arts Nasturtiums in soft olive ink on is an Arches hot press. So it's very smooth and has no texture. And they're both not quite as cream as some watercolor papers. They're a pretty nice color. So you can see I stamped that. And, no line watercolor to me means that it's not black and that the line is going to actually blend into the coloring that we do. And then I wanted to create the background that's going to go behind this. And I took the olive green Arteza watercolor brush, and I really just, haphazardly laid color down and then took that watercolor brush and just really flooded it. Um, and just layered it and then just let that dry, and it's really pretty. You could add more if you want. You could do layers of this. I really wanted that kind of stripy look and the texture, and I sopped up a little bit of the flooding on that left side because I'm going to use that underneath that image. And then just to show you a couple other techniques that you can do, you can actually color onto a block, and you can spray your paper or just spray the block, and you can press it down and you can get an interesting textural look. This block has a grid on it, and you can see that it's got the grid imprinted, which is cool. And then if I do it on the smooth side and I press that down, you can get a texture that's really only of the pen. And then if I do it again and spritz it with water, you can get a whole another watercolory background look without having a stamp. You can do a really nice little watercolor background with that, like that. And you can combine colors as well, or layer them. They're very transparent, and I really enjoyed layering them. So now I started getting into, I wanted to show you a couple of other things about the watercolor brushes that are really nice. You can see that they have a much more of a fat brush, a paintbrush, probably like a number 4 or 6. If you were to compare it to a real watercolor brush. And you can really you could probably, I'm not a hand letterer, but it feels like you could do some really nice lettering with these. I just wanted to show you could do some really quick little leaves. You could do flowers. And you can see the stroke width in the watercoloring. It's really pretty accurate to actually using a brush, except that you don't have to have the paints with you, and you don't have to keep loading it with water. So I just kept on going with this pattern a little bit. and I'm going to speed this up so you can see it, and then I'll show you the result. I think it took about five minutes or so to do this little piece, and you could do much more, and you could certainly be more organized. I was just playing around here, but it really was a fun thing. So I got back to coloring, and I started with a medium orange uh, brush, and I'm just painting in all of the darkest areas of the flower. So around the center and kind of under some of the petals. And then I'm taking that water brush, and you're seeing, oh yeah, it doesn't squirt out more. I'm not getting a whole flood of water. And I'm just going over that and filling in like I would if I was coloring something, anything else, a Copic marker or with a colored pencil. It's really the same principle. I'm drawing the color out from the darker marker. And the one word of advice I would use in doing this, flowers can look like anything. They can be any color that you want. They can be, they'll have different shadows and light. So I really wasn't here even paying much attention to making this, having a dedicated light source and being fancy. I really just went for, the centers of the flowers are darker and under the folds are darker, and tried to give it some variation and just use that water in the water brush to really create those lighter areas. And after it dried and I started layering the other colors in, I really love the result. It's not perfect. I was not trying to be perfect. I was not trying to make sure that I stayed within every single line. And watercolor is not the medium for you. If you need that kind of exacting uh, quality, it really should be a little bit freer than that. And you have to remember as well that you can do you can add, I'll show you in towards a little bit more when I start layering this. But if you're adding color to a wet area with the Arteza marker, it's also going to add water to your brush tip. So you may have to move it away and then come back as you get the ink to flow into the pen again. So I kept up with this and kept going, and the one other piece of direction that keeps us is to work in separate areas and let them dry in between so that you don't get the colors bleeding into one another. So now you can see that I'm actually coloring into pieces that don't touch anything else. And you can also see that stamp is very fine. And the little stems there and everything have a lot of little fine detail, and the point on that brush is just really, really nice for detail. It can go very fine, or you can press down a little bit harder and get more ink to come out. When you do press out, you get a little bit of a fatter line, and as well. And so it's good to do one of the exercises like with doing the leaves like I did in the beginning, because you'll understand kind of the width that you can achieve when how much pressure you apply when you hold the pen down more or less. So again, I'm just repeating the process here of, coloring in some of the dark areas and then drawing the color out with the water brush and filling the shapes. And it's really starting to take shape nicely now. You can see that the water is picking it up and drawing it out. And then the flowers had dried, and I went in with a yellow marker, and I'm just really now coloring over pretty much the whole entire shape of the flower. And because we have that transparency of the watercolor, it just lays over it and it starts getting really deep and rich. So it blends beautifully together with the orange that was there and creates, that richness, but also starts adding the color. And you can see, I mean, I'm doing this very quickly and easily. This is not fancy. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to use with the lighter green color. This is the set of 24, and there's an olive green, and then there's this other lighter green shade, and the link will be in the supplies that I use below, as always. So you can, again, the layering will bring this richness about. I kept it with I think just 3 or 4 colors. I didn't really need that much, which was so great. Let's see. I used the orange and the yellow for the flowers. I used the olive green and a lighter green for the leaves and the stems. I used a dark brown for the center of the nasturtiums, and you'll see me use that, and I just really dotted that in. And then I used a light blue on the background. So I guess 6 colors total. And you can, I think that the box of 24 is only $20 or something like that. You can get 12 for, you can get 48 for $30 or $31, and you can get 12 for only $14. So the other thing that I think is great about these is that if you have kids or other people who want to use, you don't want to let them use your more expensive supplies. These are really reasonable and high quality, and I was really impressed with that. So I just squeezed a little bit out onto my glass media mat and also onto a block, and watered that down with the brush. And I wanted a really light color, and you can see there's a lot of pigment in these brushes, which is really wonderful because it means that when you're watercoloring it with the water brush, you can get something from the lightest of the light, which is really beautiful, all the way to, full pen color, which is very bright and rich. And they really do, again, as you add more layers, you can get that buildup of color because of the transparency. So I'm just blotting this a little bit as I go, and I'm really not being super careful because, again, of that transparent quality. I'm keeping it out of the orange and the yellow, but I'm not so worried about running over little areas of the stem or the leaves because it's going to blend over that green just fine. So I'm going about this, and when I get done with the watercoloring, then I will start putting this card together. I'm hoping that this is going to inspire you to, use the pens to do the little, or other watercolors, even to do a little bit of no line watercoloring. And you can use any color for your no line for stamping with that matches the rest of your color palette for the painting that you're going to do, or for the card that you're going to make, or for the layout that you're going to make. So after I finished watercoloring, I did take that moss marker and I just edged the side of the card a little bit. And then I cut a nice piece out of Desert Storm cardstock, and I'm edging that as well, and I mounted that rough textural piece on there. And then I'm going to mount, I'm going to make the sentiment out of a Thinking of You sentiment from Hero Arts as well. and I cut a little piece from the excess, the extra watercolor paper that I have, and curve those edges. And then I'm going to mount the nasturtium panel up on top with foam so that it really stands up off the rest of the piece. I then used a little bit of Wink Estella on the flowers themselves and added some Nasturtium Nouveau drops as embellishments. And the card was pretty much finished. And it feels really artistic and painterly to me. And I really cannot say enough about how using those watercolor pens was just made it easy and clear. There's the sample again with the leaves you saw, and this shows you actually how much, this was a little test, how light of a blue, or how you could use the pens to get different variations in the colors. So there is a lot of possibility here for you all to have fun with. And I really hope that you are inspired by this and this will help you. Here's a last look at the card. And I hope that you will visit my blog and subscribe down below. There's a couple of more Easter cards here for you to check out on my YouTube channel. And I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.